COVID has affected my creative process, it has also obviously affected my everyday life as a university student, musician, and as a person. Most of you know what this looks like already, though. On the surface, it seems bleak, pensive, and desolate. But, I also see peacefulness, focus, calm, and a place where creativity can happen readily if and when one is in the right mental space for this to happen. Though myself and other students tried to keep inspired through the summer months with small outdoor jam sessions and bonfire conversations, as summer turned to fall that turned to winter, and cases and restrictions rose, it became increasingly difficult to stay inspired and excited about what we do. Because of this, it forces us all to create in our own individual environments, separated from outside inspiration and input from our peers. The question I'd like to look into here is, how does being isolated from all co-creatives impact the process of creating art? And does that impact on the process change the product, being the art presented? And also, what does my creative process look like in a COVID landscape? Is it different? And is the product different? Though I am a performance major here, this year I have decided to take on an independent research/composition project under the study of composition head Emily LaBelle. This project is requiring me to research 3 very influential 20th century modern classical composers and write a set of solo piano miniatures using their musical line. Because this was my main creative endeavor this semester, I thought that diving into how I approach this would be a great example and digestible sample for how I create things and how my creative process works. I'd like to let you in on my creative/writing process. Though it is personal, it's also extremely exciting to me. Before I touched a piano or a piece of manuscript at all, I spent a lot of time listening, analyzing, and reading what other scholars and researchers have written on these 3 composers. After this, I felt that I had sufficient information to start the real creating process. My compositional process happens in 2 parts. The first I call play. This is when I attempt to engage in a sense of childlike wonder. Because I'm a musician that spends a large amount of time improvising, this usually is time spent improvising with certain parameters set by my research of the given composer or concept. Sometimes it's just very structured, with solid sections or parameters set that I need to include. At other times, it's almost completely freely improvised, letting me decide large shifts or general moods. It is extremely important in this phase to judge absolutely nothing that is coming out of you. You are not in the position to decide what is good or bad, what works or what doesn't. Ideas must flow freely without judgment by yourself, much like children's ideas do. I like to personify my self-critic as a person named George, and right now I need to send George out to get me a coffee and welcome him back later when I need to be in a critical space. The second half of the creating process is one that I am sure many of you are familiar with. It entails many hours of going back through previously conceptualized ideas and making final decisions on their outcomes. This is followed with much time spent with both my wonderful supervisor Emily, as well as my own mental supervisor George, in which case many of the decisions made were his. This is also followed up by many painstaking hours of dealing with finale. Composing for solo piano seems to be anything but a social activity. Yet in my personal process and experience, outside input and involvement from friends and co-creators is as important as research and experimentation. Though my musical peers and I have been in some amounts of contact over the past 9 months, the institutional music environment is no longer the fishbowl of collective knowledge sharing that it has been for the previous 3 years of my degree. As COVID numbers went up, further needed restrictions were put in place over the past few weeks, and collaboration and collective sharing of ideas stopped almost fully. These restrictions happened in a time in my process where I was the most excited about sharing ideas and editing fairly complete products with my peers. Yeah, no, this is the point in the process when input and involvement would have been the most beneficial to me. Though my previous question about how COVID has affected my creative process is interesting, I really don't think it can be answered. I just think that maybe by seeing my process and product, it may be useful or interesting for those of you who are attempting to keep busy with your own creative products in this interesting time. As everyone around the world experiences novel limitation on a shared human experience, I am just attempting to maintain some sense of normalcy by continuing to create art that resonates with me and hopefully with others. I also do not want to come off as if I am not grateful for my situation. I am extremely privileged to be sitting here and recording this right now. I have a roof over my head, I am healthy, and I am able to create art, all of which are things that I absolutely do not take for granted when some are fighting for their lives and livelihoods. Please do take care and attempt to stay as inspired as possible.